Some families destroy you slowly. Mine tried to buy my silence for $50,000. The envelope arrived on a Tuesday, November 3rd, to be exact. Not a birthday card, not a wedding invitation, though my younger sister's engagement to Senator Hopeful Blaine Ross had been splashed across every society page in Manhattan. No, this was a FedEx package, the kind that requires a signature, the kind that says, "We're serious about this." I was in my Brooklyn office when it came, and I used the word office generously. It was more like a converted storage closet in the public defender's building, with water-stained ceiling tiles and a window that looked directly into a brick wall. I'd been reviewing a motion to suppress evidence for a kid who got caught with his older brother's marijuana. 18 years old, scholarship to CUNY, one mistake away from losing everything. That's what I did. I defended people who couldn't afford $800 an hour lawyers like my father. People the system wanted to forget. My assistant knocked twice, her warning signal that something unusual was happening. "Arden?" she said, poking her head in. "Fancy delivery for you. Had to show ID and everything." I looked up from my notes. Sarah was 53, had worked in this building for 20 years, and had seen every kind of legal drama imaginable. But even she looked curious. The FedEx man handed me the tablet to sign. My signature looked nothing like my mother's perfect cursive. Mine was jagged, quick, impatient. He left without a word. The envelope was thick, professional. My name typed in Garamond font, Arden Catherine Barnes, Esquire. I knew that font. My mother used it for every Barnes family correspondence. Weddings, funerals, charity galas, and apparently now this. I opened it carefully. Lawyer instincts, preserve the evidence. Inside, a 50-page non-disclosure agreement printed on cream-colored paper with the Barnes Family Trust letterhead embossed in gold. Beneath it, a check, $50,000. The signature, Talia Eleanor Barnes, my mother. And a handwritten note in her flawless penmanship. Arden, Corinne needs this season to be perfect. Your presence complicates things. Please understand. Use this for a nice vacation. Mother. I read it twice. Then I laughed. Not a happy laugh, the kind that escapes when something is so absurd, so perfectly on brand that your body doesn't know what else to do. "Everything okay?" Sarah called from her desk. "Fine," I said. "Just family being family." But I wasn't fine. My hand was shaking as I picked up the check. $50,000 to disappear. To spend Thanksgiving alone instead of showing up at the Hamptons estate where my sister would introduce her perfect fiancé to their perfect social circle. Because I, with my thrift store blazers and my clients who shoplifted baby formula, didn't fit the narrative. I was the embarrassment. The black sheep. The daughter who'd taken Grandma Eleanor's scholarship money to Yale Law and then wasted it on helping poor people instead of joining a white shoe corporate firm. My name is Arden Barnes. I'm 38 years old. I live in a 400 square foot studio in Brooklyn that costs $1,200 a month. I take the subway to work. I drink bodega coffee because Starbucks is a luxury I can't justify. And my family just tried to pay me to pretend I don't exist. If you're listening from somewhere far away, drop your city in the comments so I can see how far this has traveled. And please, stay with me until the end. I didn't tear up the check immediately. Instead, I did what any good lawyer does. I investigated. I pulled up my laptop, 7 years old, fan loud enough to wake the dead, and Googled my sister's name. Corinne had always been Google-able. The golden child. Blonde, polished, Stanford-educated with a Georgetown master's degree in political strategy. She'd worked for 2 senators before becoming Blaine Ross's senior campaign advisor. The first hit was from Town and Country, a match made in political heaven. Blaine Ross and Corinne Barnes announce engagement. The photo showed them at some gala, both in black tie, looking like they'd been photoshopped into existence. Blaine was 45, handsome in that calculated way politicians are, good teeth, good hair, good jawline. Corinne wore a dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent, her smile wide and camera ready. The article gushed about how their union would combine the Barnes Foundation's philanthropic legacy with Senator Ross's commitment to education reform. I clicked deeper. Press releases, fundraising announcements, and then I found it. A partnership between the Eleanor Barnes Memorial Foundation and the Ross Education Initiative. $5 million committed. $5 million of my grandmother's money. My grandmother, Eleanor Catherine Barnes, dead 2 years, 3 months, and 17 days. I closed the laptop and opened my desk drawer. The bottom one, the one that sticks. Inside was a manila folder marked Eleanor in my handwriting. I'd been collecting documents for 2 years. Death certificate. Hospital records I'd obtained through a HIPAA request. Financial statements for the Barnes Foundation, the public 990 forms that all nonprofits have to file. And tucked in a small plastic bag, treated like the evidence it was, a USB drive in a black case. Eleanor had given it to me 13 days before she died. 2 years earlier, March 14th, 2023, the hospice room smelled like antiseptic trying to mask decay. Eleanor was 88 years old, cancer-ridden, and somehow still the sharpest person I knew. "You're not crying," she said when I walked in. Her voice was weak but steady. "Good. I hate when people cry before I'm actually dead." I pulled a chair close to her bed. I brought chess. I held up the portable set she'd given me for my 10th birthday. "Liar. You brought legal pads. I can see them in your bag." I smiled despite myself. Even dying, she could read me. "Grandma, I need to ask you something about the foundation finances." Her eyes, still bright blue, still fierce, locked onto mine. "They're stealing from it." Not a question, a statement. "Dad and Talia?" "Of course. Your father and Talia. Who else has access?" She coughed, and I reached for the water cup, but she waved me off. "Listen to me carefully. I don't have much time." "Don't say that." "Arden." And the sharpness in her voice made me sit back. "They've been laundering money through the foundation since 2020. Fake consulting contracts with political firms. It's all going to that Ross Boys campaign, the one Corinne's so smitten with." My stomach dropped. "Do you have proof?" Eleanor smiled, thin, grim, satisfied. "I have everything. Documents, recordings, bank statements, it's all on a drive, in my safe at the estate. The combination is your birthday. Month, day, year, 6 digits. "Why haven't you gone to the police?" "Because I'm dying, darling, and your father has very expensive lawyers. I'd be dead before the case made it to court." She paused, struggling for breath. "But you're a fighter. You won't let them bury this with me." She reached under her pillow and pulled out a small key, pressed it into my palm. "What is this?" "Safety deposit box. Chase Bank, 5th Avenue, box 1847. Inside is my real will. The one your father doesn't know about." "Grandma, promise me." Her grip was surprisingly strong. "Promise me you'll expose them. Not for the money, for the truth, for justice, for every person who donated to my foundation thinking they were helping children and ended up funding some politicians' attack ads." I promised. 3 hours later, her morphine drip stopped working. I called the nurse. She checked the IV. "That's strange," she said. "The bag is missing." "What do you mean, missing?" "Someone disconnected it. Recently." She looked confused. "Did another nurse come in?" I checked the visitor log. The last person to enter the room before me, Griffin Barnes, my father. Eleanor died at 3:17 a.m. on March 14th. Official cause: complications from cancer. Natural causes, but nothing about it felt natural. Present day, November 3rd, I plugged the USB drive into my laptop. It took a moment to load, password protected. I typed Little Bird, Eleanor's nickname for me from when I was 5 and obsessed with origami cranes. The drive unlocked. 5 folders. 1. Audio_recordings. 2. Medical_records_real 3. Foundation_financials_2020 to 2023 4. DNA_tests_all_family 5. Legal will revised 2023. My cursor hovered over the audio file. I wasn't ready, not yet. Instead, I opened Foundation Financials. Spreadsheets, lots of them. Eleanor had been meticulous. 2020. Barnes Foundation received $2.1 million in donations, spent $1.8 million on scholarship programs. Normal. 2021, $2.4 million received, but $780,000 went to something called Apex Strategy Group. Consulting fee, the ledger said. Red flag. 2022, $3.1 million received. $1.2 million to Apex Strategy. Another $400,000 to Ross Education Initiative. 2023, $2.3 million received. $1.9 million to Apex and Ross entities combined. I pulled up a new browser tab, searched Apex Strategy Group. The company website was slick, corporate, vague, political consulting, and strategic communications. CEO, Duncan Whitmore. Clients listed included 3 super PACs, and there it was, Blaine Ross for Senate. It clicked into place like a puzzle I'd been solving in my sleep. My parents were laundering foundation money into Blaine's campaign, fake consulting contracts to Apex, which then independently spent nearly the same amount on attack ads and campaign infrastructure. It was textbook money laundering, 18 U.S. Code Section 1956. I'd prosecuted cases like this, defended people accused of it. But never had I seen it hidden inside a charity dedicated to my grandmother's memory. But why? What were they getting out of it? I opened the will. Last Will and Testament of Eleanor Catherine Barnes, dated March 1st, 2023. I hereby revoke all previous wills and codicils. My entire estate, valued at approximately $42 million, held primarily within the Eleanor Barnes Memorial Foundation, shall be distributed as follows. 1. To my biological grandchildren, per Sturpey's distribution 2. Griffin Barnes and Talia Barnes are hereby removed as trustees, effective immediately upon my death. 3. New executor, Sarah Nguyen, Esquire, of Nguyen and Associates. 4. Any heir found to not be a biological descendant via DNA testing shall forfeit all inheritance rights. The foundation shall be dissolved within 90 days of my death unless my heirs elect to maintain it under new management. Signed, Eleanor Catherine Barnes. Witnessed by signatures. This wasn't the will that had been probated. I knew because I'd attended the reading 2 years ago. That version, dated 2019, left Griffin and Talia as trustees and named both Corinne and me as equal beneficiaries, with them managing the foundation for our benefit until we were 40. This version was different, newer, and it had never seen the inside of a courtroom, which meant my father had hidden it, or destroyed the original, and probated a fake. But that 4th clause, biological descendant via DNA testing. Why would Eleanor specify that? My hand was shaking as I opened the DNA folder. 4 files. Griffin_Barnes_DNA.pdf, Talia_Barnes_DNA.pdf, Arden_Barnes_DNA.pdf, Corinne_Barnes_DNA.pdf. I opened mine first. The lab letterhead was from a reputable company, dated February 2023. Results: 99.9% genetic match to Eleanor Catherine Barnes. Maternal grandmother confirmed. Then I opened Corinne's. The numbers swam in front of my eyes. Genetic match to Eleanor Barnes. 0% genetic match to Griffin Barnes. 0% genetic match to Talia Barnes. 0% conclusion. Subject shows no biological relationship to any tested Barnes family member. Adoption or non-paternity event indicated. I sat back in my chair so hard it squeaked. Corinne was adopted, and she didn't know. I thought about every family dinner, every holiday, every moment where Corinne had basked in being the real Barnes daughter while I was the black sheep. Every time my mother had straightened Corinne's hair and told her she looked just like your grandmother did at your age. A lie, because she looked nothing like Eleanor. Every time my father had introduced her as my daughter who takes after me. Another lie. 30 years of lies. And the inheritance? If Eleanor's real will was enforced, Corinne got nothing. I was the sole heir to $42 million, but my parents didn't know I had this will. They thought they'd successfully buried it. They thought they were safely in control of the foundation, funneling money to Blaine's campaign, probably in exchange for political favors once he won his Senate seat. They thought they were untouchable. I looked at the check again. $50,000 to stay away. I picked up my phone and called my bank. Yes, I'd like to make a wire transfer, I said when they answered. $50,000 to the Eleanor Barnes Memorial Scholarship Fund at Brooklyn Law School. Yes, in her name. I hung up and ripped the check into small, satisfying pieces. Then I opened my calendar. Thanksgiving was 3 weeks away. November 23rd, and according to the invitation I'd seen online, the one I definitely wasn't sent, the Barnes Foundation Gala was scheduled for November 29th, 6 days after Thanksgiving, the same gala where Corinne and Blaine would announce their charitable partnership. I pulled up my email and found my father's address. Typed quickly before I could overthink it. Dad, Thank you for the generous offer, but I can't accept. I'll be spending Thanksgiving at the Hamptons house this year. Looking forward to seeing everyone. Arden. I hit send. Then I opened a new message to Sarah Nguyen, Eleanor's intended executor, the lawyer who'd tried to probate the real will 2 years ago and been blocked by my father's legal team. Sarah, I found the documents. All of them. We need to meet. Soon. Arden. Within 5 minutes, my phone rang. My father. I didn't answer. He called 3 more times. Then a text. Arden, we need to talk. Call me. I turned off my phone. I had 3 weeks to prepare. 3 weeks to build an airtight case. 3 weeks to decide if I was really going to destroy my family for the truth. But deep down, I already knew the answer. Eleanor's voice echoed in my memory. Don't let them erase me. I wouldn't. I pulled out a legal pad and started making lists. Evidence I had, evidence I needed, witnesses who could testify, legal codes I'd cite. I worked until midnight, until my coffee went cold and my hand cramped. When I finally looked up, I caught my reflection in the dark window. I looked like Eleanor. Same sharp cheekbones, same determined eyes. I'll finish this, I whispered to the empty room. I promise. Outside, Brooklyn hummed with life. Cars honking, sirens in the distance, people living their normal Tuesday nights unaware that 3 weeks from now, one of New York's oldest families would implode. I saved my notes and locked the USB drive in my desk drawer. Then I went home to my tiny studio and lay awake until dawn, planning a war. November 10th, 13 days before Thanksgiving, Sarah Nguyen's law office was in Midtown, the kind of place with real wooden furniture and framed degrees on every wall. She was 56, Vietnamese American, and had a reputation for taking on powerful families in estate disputes. Eleanor had chosen well. Show me everything, Sarah said the moment I sat down. I pulled out the USB drive and my laptop, showed her the will, the financials, the DNA tests. When the audio file played, Eleanor's weak voice detailing how Griffin had cut off her hospice care, Sarah's expression went from professional to furious. This is murder, she said flatly. Medical neglect with intent. The hospital ruled it natural causes. Because they didn't know someone disconnected her morphine drip, this recording changes everything. She paused the audio. Arden, if you go forward with this, you're not just exposing financial crimes. You're accusing your father of killing his own mother. I know. Are you sure you want to do this? I thought about Eleanor teaching me chess when I was 8, how she'd always let me win the first game, then demolish me in the second to teach me that real life doesn't hand you victories. How she'd paid for my Yale education when my parents threatened to cut me off for not choosing Harvard. How she'd called me every Sunday until the cancer made it too hard to talk. Yes, I said, I'm sure. Sarah nodded slowly. Then we do this right. Legal, airtight, no room for their lawyers to wiggle out. What's the plan? First, we get the will probated properly. I'll file a petition to reopen the estate citing newly discovered evidence. That'll trigger an investigation into why the 2019 will was accepted when this 2023 version exists. My father will fight it. Let him. Fighting looks guilty, and while he's distracted with probate court, we build the criminal case. Money laundering, wire fraud, and... She hesitated. If you really want to push it, voluntary manslaughter for Eleanor's death. I want to push it. Then we need the FBI, White Collar Crimes Division. She pulled out her phone. I know someone in the Southern District, Assistant U.S. Attorney named Rebecca Lang. She handles financial fraud cases. If anyone can make this stick, it's her. How long will it take? Normally, 6 months to a year. I need it faster. Sarah studied me. Why? The gala is November 29th. They're planning to announce the foundation merger with Blaine's campaign. If I'm going to stop this, I need to do it publicly. Make it impossible to bury. That's risky. If they suspect you have evidence, they could destroy records, move money offshore. They won't suspect. They think I'm the failure daughter they can buy off. They think I'm too weak, too busy with my little Brooklyn cases to notice their schemes. And you're going to let them keep thinking that? Until the exact moment I'm ready to detonate everything. Sarah smiled, sharp and approving. Eleanor would be proud. We spent the next 4 hours strategizing. Sarah would contact the FBI quietly, set up meetings. I would attend Thanksgiving, act normal, and record everything. New York was a one-party consent state. As long as I was part of the conversation, recording was legal. One more thing, Sarah said as I packed up. The DNA test. Have you told Corinne? No. You should. Before this becomes public, give her a chance to process it privately. She won't believe me. She'll think it's a lie to hurt her. Maybe, but she deserves to know the truth before the whole world does. I thought about that on the subway ride home. Should I tell Corinne? We hadn't been close in years. She'd chosen our parents' world, charity galas, political connections, designer clothes, and performative philanthropy. I'd chosen the opposite. We'd grown into strangers who happened to share a last name, but Sarah was right. Corinne deserved to know. I pulled out my phone and typed a message. Corinne, we need to talk in person. It's about Grandma Eleanor and you. Please. I stared at it for 5 minutes before deleting it. Not yet. First, I needed more evidence, more certainty, more courage. The truth could wait a little longer. November 22nd, the night before Thanksgiving. I packed light for Hamptons. One small suitcase with clothes I'd borrowed from a lawyer friend who actually attended fancy dinners. A wire recorder so small it fit in my bra, uploaded to cloud storage in real time. And Eleanor's fountain pen. The one she'd left me in a box of her personal items my father let me take. I wasn't sure why I brought the pen. Maybe for luck. Maybe to feel like she was with me. My studio apartment looked smaller than usual as I locked the door. Everything I owned fit in this 400 square feet. Books, clothes, a coffee maker that only worked half the time. One framed photo, young me and Eleanor at a chess tournament, both grinning. I touched the frame gently. Tomorrow, I whispered. Tomorrow it begins. The drive to Hamptons took 2 hours in my 13-year-old Honda Civic. The car sputtered on highways like it was offended by the idea of Long Island. My phone buzzed 3 times with messages from my father. What time will you arrive? Dinner is at 6. Don't be late. Corinne wants to introduce you to Blaine properly. I didn't respond to any of them. The Barnes estate hadn't changed. Still massive, still imposing, still designed to remind visitors that old money built different. The driveway was lined with oak trees Eleanor had planted 40 years ago. The house itself was Georgian colonial, white columns and black shutters straight out of a Ralph Lauren ad. Cars were already parked out front. I recognized Talia's Mercedes, Corinne's Tesla, and an unfamiliar black Range Rover that probably belonged to Blaine. I sat in my car for a full minute, engine running, wondering if I should turn around. Then I remembered Eleanor's voice on that recording. Don't let them erase me. I turned off the engine and got out. The front door opened before I reached it. My mother stood in the frame, backlit and perfect as always. Talia Barnes, at 58, looked 40, thanks to Botox, Pilates, and probably deals with entities best left unnamed. She wore cream-colored cashmere and pearls. Eleanor's pearls, I noticed. The ones that should have been in the estate inventory. Arden, she said. No warmth, just acknowledgement. You came. You sound surprised. We weren't sure you'd take the invitation seriously after you rejected our offer. I take Thanksgiving very seriously, Mother. It's about family. Something flickered in her eyes. Suspicion, maybe, but she stepped aside to let me in. The house smelled like expensive candles trying to mask old wood and older secrets. Nothing had changed since my last visit for Eleanor's funeral. Same antique furniture, same portraits of Barnes' ancestors who'd made their fortune in shipping and real estate, same grandfather clock ticking in the hall like a countdown. Everyone's in the living room, Talia said. Cocktails before dinner. Try to be pleasant. I'm always pleasant. You're always difficult. There's a difference. She walked away before I could respond, heels clicking on marble floors. I followed slowly, taking in details. New artwork, a Rothko that probably cost more than my yearly salary. Fresh flowers, hydrangeas, out of season, which meant they'd been flown in. The chandelier above the staircase had been cleaned recently. It sparkled like broken promises. Voices drifted from the living room. My father's baritone, Corinne's practiced laugh, and a third voice, smooth and political, Blaine Ross. I paused at the doorway, unseen, observed them like a lawyer studying a jury. My father, Griffin Barnes, stood by the fireplace looking like he'd been born in a cashmere sweater and holding a scotch. 62 years old and still handsome in that distinguished silver fock way that probably helped in his former career as a corporate lawyer. Now he was retired, which meant he played golf and mismanaged, I corrected mentally, Eleanor's foundation. Corinne perched on the arm of a leather chair, blonde hair, perfectly curled, wearing a dress that probably cost more than my rent. She looked like every Society magazine's dream bride, 30 years old and already an expert in political maneuvering. And Blaine Ross, 45, tall, good teeth, better suit, the kind of man who'd practiced his smile in mirrors until it looked genuine. He had his arm around Corinne's waist possessively. I stepped into the room. Arden! My father's surprise sounded almost authentic. You actually came. Wouldn't miss it. Corinne's expression was harder to read. Confusion, maybe? She stood, smoothing her dress. Arden, it's been a while. 2 years. Eleanor's funeral. Awkward silence. Blaine jumped in, hand extended. Arden Barnes, I've heard so much about you. Blaine Ross, pleasure to finally meet properly. I shook his hand. His grip was firm, calculated. Everything about him was calculated. Corinne tells me you're a public defender in Brooklyn, he continued. That must be meaningful work. It's work that matters, I said, helping people who can't afford to buy justice. The barb landed. My father's Scotch glass froze halfway to his mouth. Well, Talia breezed in with a tray of hors d'oeuvres. Isn't this lovely? The whole family together. Arden, you'll sit next to Blaine at dinner. You two should get to know each other better. He's about to become part of the family after all. About that, I said, keeping my voice light and curious. I read about the foundation partnership with your education initiative, Blaine. $5 million is quite the commitment. We believe in education access, Blaine said smoothly. Corinne and I share that vision. And the Barnes Foundation shares its resources. How generous of my grandmother's legacy. Another beat of silence. Your grandmother would be thrilled, Griffin said firmly. This is exactly the kind of impact she wanted. I smiled, said nothing. Let them fill the silence. Speaking of impact, Corinne said, voice bright with forced cheer, we're announcing the full partnership at the gala next week. It's going to be beautiful. The plaza, live orchestra, 200 guests. I'd love to attend, I said. Everyone froze. The gala? Talia's voice was sharp. Arden, it's a very exclusive event. The guest list has been finalized for months. But surely there's room for Eleanor's granddaughter at an event honoring her memory. Checkmate. They couldn't exclude me without looking cruel. Of course, Griffin said after a painful pause. We'll make sure you're added to the list. Wonderful. I picked up a canapé, bit into it. I can't wait to celebrate Grandma's legacy properly. The weight of those words hung in the air like smoke from a just-fired gun. Dinner was at 6 sharp. We gathered in the formal dining room, the one reserved for holidays and impressing people. The table could seat 16, but tonight it was just the 5 of us, spread out like chess pieces waiting for the game to begin. The irony wasn't lost on me. Eleanor had taught me chess at this very table. Talia had gone full Martha Stewart, turkey with herb butter, 3 kinds of potatoes, roasted Brussels sprouts that probably cost $40 at some organic farm. Crystal glasses caught the candlelight. The good china, Wedgwood, inherited from Eleanor's mother, gleamed against white linen. It looked like a magazine spread. It felt like a funeral. Shall we say grace? Griffin asked, already reaching for the wine. We held hands. Blaine's palm was slightly sweaty. Corinne's was ice cold. Dear Lord, my father intoned, we thank you for this bounty, for family gathered together, and for the blessings of another year. We especially remember Eleanor, whose spirit lives on through the work we do in her name. Amen. I bit my tongue. The work we do, like embezzlement, was a spiritual calling. Amen, everyone echoed. Wine was poured, a Bordeaux that probably cost more than my car payment. Plates were filled. Small talk began. Weather in the Hamptons, Blaine's polling numbers, Corinne's latest Vogue interview about power couples in politics. I waited. Watched. The wire recorder against my skin was warm, transmitting everything to the cloud. 20 minutes in, Griffin cleared his throat. Arden, I'm glad you decided to join us. We should talk about the misunderstanding. What misunderstanding? The NDA, the check. I think you took it the wrong way. Did I? I cut into my turkey with surgical precision. How should I take being paid to disappear? Talia set down her fork. We weren't asking you to disappear, just to give Corinne some space during a stressful time. Campaign season is difficult. For Blaine or for you? Blaine shifted uncomfortably. I think there's been some miscommunication. No, I said calmly. The communication was very clear. $50,000 to stay away from family gatherings because I'm an embarrassment. I defend criminals. I don't wear designer clothes. I might say something honest in front of donors. Did I miss anything? Corinne spoke for the first time since we'd sat down. Arden, nobody said you're an embarrassment. The check said it for you. Silence fell like a guillotine blade. Griffin tried a different approach. Look, we're all adults here. Let's talk plainly. Yes, we offered you compensation for discretion during a sensitive time. That's not unusual in prominent families. It's called hush money, Dad. It's called being practical. His voice hardened. Corinne is marrying a man who could be a U.S. senator. Every family member gets scrutinized. Your work defending drug dealers and gang members? I defend people who can't afford lawyers. Constitutional right to counsel. You might remember that from law school. Don't be sanctimonious. You chose that work specifically to spite us. I chose it because Eleanor taught me that privilege comes with responsibility. Real responsibility. Not the kind you claim while stealing from her foundation. The room went nuclear. Talia stood so fast her chair scraped. How dare you? Sit down, Mother. My voice was steel. We're not done. Something in my tone made her sit. I turned to Blaine. Tell me about Apex Strategy Group. His face went pale. What? Apex Strategy Group, political consulting firm. You've paid them $1.8 million this year alone. Interesting, since the Barnes Foundation paid Apex $1.9 million in consulting fees. Almost the exact same amount. What a coincidence. Griffin's Scotch glass hit the table hard enough to crack. Arden, that's called coordination, Blaine, between a nonprofit and a political campaign. Highly illegal. The FEC takes a very dim view of it. So does the IRS and the FBI. This is absurd, Talia said, but her hand went to Eleanor's pearls, her tell when she was lying. Is it? Should we talk about the $400,000 to Ross Education Initiative, the one that exists only on paper, or the $780,000 in program costs that paid for your campaign ads? Blaine pushed back from the table. I think I should go. Sit down. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't need to. You're part of this conversation. He sat. I pulled out my phone, set it on the table, pressed play. Eleanor's voice filled the dining room, weak but clear. March 13th, 2023. This is Eleanor Barnes. If you're hearing this, I'm dead. And if I'm dead, it's because my son Griffin cut off my medical care. Griffin lunged for the phone. I was faster, pulling it back. Eleanor continued, Yesterday, Doctor Patel told me Griffin called hospice and ordered them to discontinue pain management and hydration. He said, the family wants to let her pass naturally. That's a lie. I want to live. I want to testify against my son and his wife for embezzling from my foundation. Turn it off. Talia was crying now, mascara running. I stopped the recording. That's just the first 3 minutes. There's another hour of her detailing every crime you've committed, bank accounts, meeting dates, names of everyone involved. Corinne stared at our parents like she'd never seen them before. You killed Grandma? We did not kill anyone, Griffin said, but his voice shook. She was dying. We just hastened the inevitable. You murdered her, Corinne's voice broke, because she was going to expose you. We were protecting this family, Talia shrieked. Everything we did was for you girls, for your futures. My future? I laughed bitterly. You tried to pay me off. And Corinne's future is marrying a man whose career you're bankrolling with stolen charity money. Blaine stood again. I didn't know. I swear, I didn't know the foundation money was... Oh, please. I looked at him with disgust. Your finance director had to know where that $1.9 million came from. You just didn't ask questions because you needed it. He had the decency to look ashamed. Here's what's going to happen, I said, standing now. I'm going to the FBI. I'm going to probate court with Eleanor's real will, the one from 2023 that removes you both as trustees and changes the inheritance structure. And I'm going to make sure every newspaper in New York knows exactly what you did. You can't prove, Griffin started, 18 U.S. Code Section 1956, money laundering, conducting financial transactions with proceeds from unlawful activity. Eleanor's recording is admissible evidence. The bank records corroborate everything, and I have DNA tests. That stopped everyone. DNA tests? Corinne's voice was small. I looked at her, really looked at her. This was the moment I could tell her the truth or let it come out later, publicly, cruelly. Sarah's voice echoed in my head. She deserves to know. Eleanor had DNA tests done on all of us. February 2023. She wanted to know the truth about her biological descendants before she died. Why would she? Corinne stopped. Understanding dawned slowly, horribly. No. Corinne. Talia reached for her. Don't touch me. Corinne stood, swaying slightly. I'm not a Barnes, am I? The silence was answer enough. You're our daughter, Griffin said. DNA doesn't change that. But it changes the inheritance. Corinne's voice rose to a scream. Eleanor's will specifies biological descendants. That's why you hid it. That's why you probated a fake will from 2019. Because if the real one came out, I'd get nothing. She turned to me. You knew. At Thanksgiving, you knew. I found out a week ago. And you didn't tell me. You let me sit here thinking I was part of this family while planning to destroy it. I'm not destroying it. They already did that. I gestured to our parents. I'm just making sure everyone knows. Corinne grabbed her purse and ran from the room. We heard the front door slam, her car engine start, tires on gravel. Blaine was already on his phone. I need to call my lawyer. You do that, I said. He left without another word. It was just the three of us now, me and my parents in the ruins of their carefully constructed lies. What do you want? Griffin asked finally. Money? More than $50,000? Name your price. There is no price, Dad. This isn't negotiable. Everything is negotiable, Talia said desperately. We can fix this. We can make donations in Eleanor's name. Real ones. Legitimate. You can't unmurder someone. She was dying, Talia screamed. She had months, maybe weeks. We didn't kill her. We just accelerated her death so she couldn't testify. That's still murder. Or, at minimum, voluntary manslaughter. I picked up my phone. The gala is in 6 days. I'll see you there. Try not to move any money offshore before then. The FBI is already watching your accounts. That was a bluff, but they didn't know that. I walked out of the dining room, through the front hall, past Eleanor's portrait hanging in the shadows. I'm doing it, I told her silently, just like I promised. I drove back to Brooklyn in the dark, hands shaking on the steering wheel. The wire recorder had captured everything, every word, every confession, every piece of evidence I needed. But I felt hollow. I'd just destroyed my family. Yes, they deserved it. Yes, they'd committed crimes. Yes, Eleanor deserved justice. But they were still my family. My phone buzzed. Text from Corinne. I need to know everything. Meet me. I texted back. Where? Brooklyn. That diner you used to take me to when we were kids. Tomorrow night. 8 p.m. The diner. I remembered it. A 24-hour place near Prospect Park where Eleanor used to take us for milkshakes after museum trips. Before Corinne decided museums were boring and milkshakes were too many calories. I'll be there, I sent back. Then a text from Sarah Nguyen. I heard from Rebecca Lang at FBI. She wants to meet Monday. They're interested. Very interested. The dominoes were falling. November 24th, 7:45 p.m. The diner hadn't changed in 20 years. Same red vinyl booths, same checkerboard floor, same laminated menus offering breakfast all day. It smelled like coffee and old grease and nostalgia. I got there early, ordered black coffee, sat facing the door. Corinne arrived at 8:03. She looked different. No makeup, hair in a messy ponytail, wearing jeans and a Yale sweatshirt I recognized. I'd given it to her years ago, back when we still sometimes acted like sisters. She slid into the booth across from me. I haven't been here since I was 16, she said. I know. A waitress came over. What can I get you, hun? Chocolate milkshake, Corinne said. Extra whipped cream. I raised an eyebrow. What? If my entire life is a lie, I might as well have dairy. The waitress left. We sat in uncomfortable silence. So, Corinne said finally, I'm adopted. Yes. And you knew before Thanksgiving? Yes. And you didn't tell me. I wasn't sure. Bullshit. Her voice was sharp but not angry. Tired. You weren't sure if it was strategic to tell me. You're a lawyer. Everything's strategic. She wasn't wrong. I wanted to tell you, I said. But I thought you'd think I was lying, making it up to hurt you. Would have been a reasonable assumption. She laughed bitterly. We haven't exactly been close. The milkshake arrived. She took a long sip, got whipped cream on her nose, didn't wipe it off. Do you know who my birth parents are? She asked. Eleanor left you a letter. It's in the black box files. I haven't read it. It's sealed, addressed to you. But you know I exist in those files. You've known for days that I'm not really a Barnes. You're still a Barnes. You grew up as one. That counts for something. Does it? Because legally, I'm nobody. Eleanor's will, the real one, says biological descendants only, which means I inherit nothing. You get everything. $42 million, I confirmed, plus control of the foundation. Must be nice. Winning. This isn't about winning, isn't it? She looked at me directly. Come on, Arden. You've spent your whole life being the black sheep, the disappointment, the daughter they tried to buy off, and now you get to expose them, take everything, and prove you were the worthy one all along. That's not winning? I didn't answer because she was partly right. I'm not mad at you, she said. I mean, I am. But mostly I'm mad at them. At Mom and Dad, at Grandma for not telling me, at everyone who let me build my entire identity on a foundation of lies. Eleanor didn't tell you because your parents forbade it, and Grandma always did what she was told? No, but she loved you. She wanted you to know when you were ready. When I was ready, I'm 30 years old. When would I have been ready? Fair point. Corinne pulled out her phone, showed me the screen. It was a news article. Blaine called off the engagement, issued a statement this morning. Personal reasons, wish her well, focusing on campaign. I'm sorry. Are you? You exposed him as a crook. He is a crook. So are our parents. So is basically everyone I've ever trusted. She set down her phone. You know what the worst part is? I don't even know if I loved him. I think I just loved the idea of him. The perfect political couple, the power, the image. That's what they trained you for. Exactly. They molded me my entire life to be the perfect daughter, the perfect political wife, the perfect Barnes heir. And it was all based on a lie. I'm not even a Barnes. You are... No. Legally, biologically, I'm not. And when Eleanor's real will gets probated, everyone will know it. I hesitated, then said, I could contest that clause. Argue that you're entitled to half despite the DNA. Don't. Her voice was firm. Don't pity me. The will is clear. Eleanor wanted biological descendants to inherit. She had her reasons. But, Arden, for once in your crusading life, just let something be. I don't want charity from you. We sat in silence. She finished her milkshake. What happens now? She asked. At the gala? I'm going to play Eleanor's full recording in front of everyone. Then the FBI will arrest Mom and Dad. For money laundering. And for Eleanor's death. Will that stick? The murder charge? Voluntary manslaughter probably. Medical neglect resulting in death. It's hard to prove without the original IV bags, but Eleanor's testimony combined with hospital records should be enough. And then you inherit everything. And then I try to fix what they broke. Corinne studied me. You're going to keep the foundation running, aren't you? I want to, but I can't do it alone. I have a full-time job. So hire someone. I was thinking of offering you the position. She laughed. You're kidding. Co-trustee, equal voting rights, salary of $150,000 a year. You have a degree in political strategy. You know how to run complex organizations. You're qualified. I'm qualified for the job I was bred to do for parents who murdered their mother. Then take those same skills and use them for something real, something Eleanor actually wanted. She was quiet for a long time. I'd be working for you. With me, not for me. Why would you do this after everything? I thought about Eleanor teaching us chess. How she'd sit between us and say, You're not opponents. You're partners learning strategy together. Because Eleanor loved both of us, I said, and because you're my sister, DNA or not. Corinne's eyes filled with tears. I've been terrible to you. We've been terrible to each other. I called you an embarrassment at Christmas 2 years ago. I told everyone at Eleanor's funeral that you were a sellout. We're a mess. We're a family. Families are messy. She wiped her eyes with a napkin. Okay. Okay, what? Okay, I'll do it. After the gala, after the arrests, after the media circus dies down, I'll help you run the foundation. We'll do it right this time. Something in my chest loosened. A knot I didn't know I'd been carrying. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. I'm probably going to be terrible at actual charity work. You'll learn. We ordered fries and talked until midnight. About Eleanor, about childhood memories, about what it felt like to realize your parents were strangers. about how Corinne had always felt like she was performing, never quite good enough, never quite real. I kept thinking Grandma was disappointed in me, she said. Now I know why. I wasn't being myself. I didn't even know who myself was. You have time to figure it out now. Do I? My engagement is off. My career in politics is over once this scandal breaks. My parents are going to prison. I'm adopted and broke. What do I have? The truth. And a choice. Some choice. It's more than you had before. She couldn't argue with that. At 12:47 a.m., we walked out together. The Brooklyn street was quiet, just a few cars passing, streetlights casting long shadows. The gala's in 5 days, I said. I know. You don't have to come. Are you kidding? I wouldn't miss it. She smiled, sad but real. Besides, someone needs to make sure you don't chicken out. I won't chicken out. Good. Because Grandma deserves this. And so do all those people who donated thinking they were helping kids get scholarships. We stood there awkwardly, not sure how to end this strange, painful reconciliation. Finally, Corinne hugged me, quick, tight, then pulled back fast like she was embarrassed. See you at the gala, she said, and walked to her Tesla. I watched her drive away, then got in my Honda. My phone buzzed. Text from Rebecca Lang, the FBI attorney. Monday, 10 a.m., Federal Plaza. Bring everything. We're going to bury them. I drove home with Eleanor's voice in my head, her last words on that recording. The truth will set you free. 5 days until the gala. 5 days until I either got justice or destroyed what was left of my family. Or maybe both. November 25th to November 28th. Montage. The next 4 days were a blur of preparation. Monday. Met with Rebecca Lang and 2 FBI agents. They reviewed every document, every recording, every bank statement. Rebecca's face got harder with each piece of evidence. This is slam dunk money laundering, she said. RICO charges, racketeering. We can bring the whole thing down. What about the murder charge? Harder. Medical neglect is a gray area, but combined with Eleanor's testimony and the missing morphine, she tapped her pen. Voluntary manslaughter. Maybe second-degree murder if we can prove premeditation. Can you arrest them at the gala? You want me to arrest your parents at a charity event? I want them to confess in front of 200 witnesses and cameras. Then you arrest them. She smiled grimly. You're vindictive. I like it. Tuesday, probate court. Sarah Nguyen filed a motion to reopen Eleanor's estate based on newly discovered evidence. The judge scheduled a hearing for December 15th. My father's lawyers filed an emergency motion to block it. Denied. Wednesday. I bought a dress for the gala. Dark blue, Eleanor's favorite color. Simple, elegant. The saleswoman tried to upsell me to something with sequins. No, I said. This isn't a celebration. It's a funeral. Thursday. Corinne called. Mom and Dad are panicking. They tried to wire $2 million to a bank in the Cayman Islands. Their bank froze the transaction and reported it to Treasury. Rebecca told them she was watching their accounts. They're idiots if they tried to move money. They're desperate idiots. Dad called me 8 times. I didn't answer. Good. Arden? Yeah? Thank you for telling me the truth, even if it destroyed everything. I didn't know what to say to that, so I just said, see you tomorrow. Friday, November 29th, gala day. I woke up at 6 a.m., too anxious to sleep, made coffee, reviewed my notes. The recording was on my phone, backed up in 3 places. The speech I'd written was 2 minutes long, just enough to drop the bomb before security could remove me. At noon, my phone rang. Unknown number. Mrs. Barnes? A man's voice. Official. This is Agent Patterson, FBI. We'll have a team positioned outside the plaza tonight. Once you play the recording and Mrs. Lang gives the signal, we'll move in for arrests. Thank you. Ma'am, what you're doing, it's brave, and it's right. I wasn't sure about brave, but right? Yes, Eleanor deserved that. At 5 p.m., I started getting ready. The blue dress fit perfectly. I put on minimal makeup. I wanted to look serious, not glamorous. Eleanor's fountain pen went in my purse as a talisman. At 6:30, I called a car service. My Honda wasn't making it to the plaza. The driver tried to make small talk. I stared out the window, watching Manhattan lights blur past, and thought about every moment that had led here. Eleanor teaching me that truth matters more than comfort. My parents choosing money over integrity. Corinne discovering her identity was a constructed lie, and me about to blow it all up in the name of justice. The car pulled up to the plaza at 7:15. Red carpet, photographers, society people, and designer everything. I stepped out and walked toward my family's reckoning. The plaza's grand ballroom looked like someone had monetized elegance and mass-produced it. Crystal chandeliers that cost more than most people's houses. Tables draped in ivory silk. Centerpieces of white roses, Eleanor's favorite flower, now weaponized for their PR. And there, on the stage, a portrait of my grandmother, larger than life. Her blue eyes seemed to follow me as I entered. "I'm here," I told her silently, just like I promised. The room was maybe 60% full. Word had spread after Blaine called off the engagement. The Barnes family was toxic now. Smart people kept their distance. But there were still enough society vultures, political donors, and social climbers to make this worthwhile. I recognized faces from magazine spreads. Manhattan elite. People who donated to Eleanor's foundation thinking they were helping underprivileged kids get educated, not funding attack ads. They deserved to know where their money went. My parents stood near the stage playing host and hostess. My father in a tuxedo that probably cost $5,000. My mother in champagne-colored silk still wearing Eleanor's pearls like a trophy. They saw me. My father's jaw tightened. Talia's hand went to those pearls. Her tell. I walked straight toward them. "Arden." My father's voice was controlled, but I could hear the edge. "We didn't think you'd actually come. I RSVP'd. It would be rude not to show. We need to talk. Privately." He tried to steer me toward a side door. I didn't move. "Anything you want to say, you can say here." Talia leaned in, voice low and venomous. "If you do what we think you're planning, if you embarrass this family in public, you will regret it." "Is that a threat, Mother?" "It's a promise." And a microphone squealed feedback. The event coordinator was testing sound. Almost time for speeches. Corinne appeared at my elbow. She wore black, mourning clothes for a family that was already dead. Her face was makeup-free, hair simple. She looked more real than I'd ever seen her. "Ready?" she whispered. "As I'll ever be." My father noticed us standing together. His expression shifted from anger to something like fear. "Corinne, sweetheart, why don't you come with us?" "No, Dad. I'm staying with Arden." "Corinne, you lied to me my entire life. You murdered Grandma. You stole from her foundation. I'm done pretending we're a happy family." People nearby were starting to notice the tension. Whispers spread like wildfire. The event coordinator approached my father. "Mr. Barnes, we're ready to begin whenever you are." He looked at me one last time. Pleading? Warning? I couldn't tell. Then he straightened his shoulders and walked toward the stage. The lights dimmed. Conversations quieted. Everyone took their seats. My father stood at the podium, looking distinguished and trustworthy. Everything a con man should look like. "Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us to honor my mother, Eleanor Barnes, whose legacy of compassion and education continues to inspire us all." I felt sick. Eleanor believed that opportunity should be available to everyone, regardless of circumstance. That's why she founded this foundation 30 years ago. And tonight, we're thrilled to announce a new chapter in her mission. He gestured grandly. The Barnes Foundation is merging with the Ross Education Initiative to create the largest scholarship program in New York State. Together, we'll help thousands of deserving students. That's a lie. My voice cut through the room like a scalpel. Everyone turned. My father froze mid-sentence. "Excuse me?" he said. I stood, felt 200 pairs of eyes on me. I said, "That's a lie. You're not merging to help students. You're laundering money through a charity to fund a political campaign." Gasps. Phones came out immediately, everyone recording. "Arden, this is not the time," my father started. "This is exactly the time." I walked toward the stage. Security moved to intercept, but Corinne stood up too. "Let her speak," she called out. "She's Eleanor's granddaughter. She has a right to speak at an event honoring her grandmother." Security hesitated. In that moment, I reached the stage. My father tried to block the microphone. "Arden, please, you're making a scene. Good. Everyone should see this." I pulled out my phone. "Dad, you said Eleanor's legacy was compassion and education. Let's hear what she actually thought about your work." I pressed play. Eleanor's voice filled the ballroom through the sound system. Weak, dying, but crystal clear. March 13th, 2023. This is Eleanor Barnes. If you're hearing this, I'm dead. And if I'm dead, it's because my son Griffin cut off my medical care. The room went silent. You could have heard a champagne bubble pop. Yesterday, Dr. Patel told me Griffin called hospice and ordered them to discontinue pain management and hydration. He said, "The family wants to let her pass naturally." That's a lie. I want to live. I want to testify against my son and his wife for embezzling from my foundation. My mother made a sound like a wounded animal. Since 2020, Griffin and Talia have been stealing from the foundation I built to help children. They've routed nearly $2 million through fake consulting contracts to Apex Strategy Group, which then funneled that money into Blaine Ross's Senate campaign. This is money laundering. This is fraud. This is a betrayal of every donor who trusted us. People in the audience were standing now, some outraged, some fascinated, all recording. I have documentation, bank records, meeting transcripts, recorded conversations. I've left everything to my granddaughter Arden, because she's the only one I trust to tell the truth. I stopped the recording. Let the silence breathe. That's 1 minute of a 40-minute recording, I said into the microphone. In the rest, she details every transaction, every lie, every crime. She also explains how my father ended her life when she threatened to go public. "This is slander," my father shouted. "That recording could be doctored, edited. It's authenticated, time-stamped, notarized by Eleanor's doctor, and it's already been submitted to the FBI as evidence." That's when the doors opened. Assistant U.S. Attorney Rebecca Lang walked in, flanked by 6 FBI agents. "Griffin Barnes, Talia Barnes," she called out, voice echoing in the shocked silence. "You're under arrest for wire fraud, money laundering, conspiracy to commit fraud, and voluntary manslaughter." The ballroom erupted. Screaming, camera flashes, people fleeing like the building was on fire. My father tried to run. 2 agents caught him before he made it 3 steps. My mother collapsed into a chair, sobbing, mascara streaming down her face. As they handcuffed my father, he looked at me with pure hatred. "You did this," he said. "You destroyed your own family." "No, Dad." My voice was steady. "You destroyed it. I just made sure everyone knew." They read him his rights, led him toward the door. My mother screamed after me as they cuffed her too. "You ungrateful bitch, after everything we gave you. You gave me nothing. Eleanor gave me everything that mattered, including the truth." She spat at me, missed. They took her away. The ballroom was chaos now. Reporters shoving forward with questions. Society people fleeing to avoid being associated. Donors demanding refunds. Corinne stood beside me on the stage, both of us watching our parents get arrested on live television. "It's done," she said quietly. "Yeah." "Do you feel better?" I thought about it. Tried to find satisfaction, triumph, vindication. All I felt was tired. Ask me in a year. 3 months later. The trial lasted 2 weeks. I attended every day, sitting in the gallery, watching prosecutors dismantle my parents' lies piece by piece. The evidence was overwhelming. Bank records showing money flowing from Foundation to Apex to Ross campaign. Emails between my father and Duncan Whitmore discussing creative accounting. Text messages between my mother and Blaine's campaign manager about donation timing. And Eleanor's recording, played in full for the jury. 43 minutes of my dying grandmother explaining exactly how her son had betrayed her. When it finished, 3 jurors were crying. My father's lawyer tried to argue duress, mental incapacity, misunderstanding of nonprofit law. The jury wasn't buying it. The medical expert testimony was damning. Doctor. Patel explained that discontinuing hospice care for a cancer patient who wasn't actively dying constituted negligent homicide at minimum. Mrs. Barnes had 3 to 6 months to live, he testified. She was in pain, yes, but manageable pain. There was no medical reason to discontinue her morphine drip. The decision was not made by her or her healthcare team. It was made by her son. My father's face was gray as ash. On day 12, I was called to testify. The defense attorney tried to paint me as vindictive, a bitter daughter seeking revenge. "Ms. Barnes, isn't it true that you stand to inherit $42 million from this prosecution?" "I inherit regardless," I said calmly. "Eleanor's will leaves everything to me, whether my parents go to jail or not." "But you chose to expose them publicly, dramatically, at a gala. That seems theatrical." "It was necessary. They needed to confess in front of witnesses. Otherwise, their expensive lawyers would have made this disappear. So you ambushed your own family. I held them accountable. There's a difference. You recorded them without consent. New York is a one-party consent state. I was part of every conversation I recorded. It was legal. He tried a different angle. You and your sister Corinne weren't close. In fact, you resented her, didn't you? I resented the way our parents treated us differently, but that's not relevant to their crimes. Isn't it? You got to destroy the family that rejected you and take everything for yourself. That's quite convenient. I leaned forward. You know what would have been convenient? Taking the $50,000 they offered me to stay quiet. That would have been easy. This was hard. This was necessary. And if you're suggesting I fabricated evidence against my own parents for money I already inherited, you're insulting the jury's intelligence. The defense attorney sat down. On day 14, the jury deliberated for 6 hours. Verdict: guilty on all counts. My father stared straight ahead, emotionless. My mother broke down completely. Sentencing came a week later. The judge was a woman in her 70s who reminded me of Eleanor. The court has reviewed the evidence, the victim impact statements, and the defendant's lack of remorse, she said. Griffin Barnes, you are sentenced to 18 years in federal prison. Talia Barnes, 12 years. My mother wailed. My father said nothing. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Arden, how do you feel about your parents' conviction? Justice has been served. My grandmother can rest now. Will you forgive them? I paused, thought about it honestly. No, but I understand them, and maybe someday that'll be enough. Corinne stood beside me, fielding questions about the foundation's future. We're restructuring completely, she said. New board, new oversight, real transparency. Every dollar will go to actual scholarships, not political campaigns. What about the Barnes family name? We're keeping it, I said, but we're redefining what it means. Eleanor built something good. We're going to honor that, not the corruption that came after. 1 year later, the Barnes estate had been transformed into the Eleanor Barnes Museum of Social Justice. We'd sold most of the furniture, too many bad memories. Donated my parents' clothes and jewelry, kept only what mattered. Eleanor's books, her chess set, photographs of her doing actual charity work. The museum opened on Eleanor's birthday. We invited the same donors who'd been at the gala, but this time to show them what real philanthropy looked like. The foundation had awarded 200 scholarships this year, set up legal aid clinics in 3 boroughs, funded after-school programs in underserved communities. Everything Eleanor had actually wanted. Corinne ran operations. She was good at it, better than I expected. Turned out she was brilliant at logistics and fundraising when it wasn't for corrupt purposes. I kept my job as a public defender. But now I also served as co-trustee, reviewing grant applications, meeting scholarship recipients, making sure every dollar was spent right. We stood together at the ribbon-cutting ceremony. Press coverage was positive this time. From scandal to service, the Barnes sisters rebuild their grandmother's legacy. After the cameras left, we walked through the quiet museum, stopped in front of Eleanor's portrait. Think she'd be proud? Corinne asked. I think she'd say we're finally doing what we should have done all along. Do you ever regret it? Exposing them? We lost our parents. We lost people who pretended to be parents. There's a difference. Corinne was quiet. Then, Mom called me from prison last week. I looked at her, surprised. What did she say? That she was sorry, that she loved me, that she understands why I don't visit. Corinne's voice cracked. She asked if I'd found out who my birth mother was. Did you? Yeah. Eleanor's letter explained everything. My birth mother was her best friend, Victoria. Died in childbirth, no other family. Eleanor found me a home. With our parents. She thought they'd love me. She was wrong. They just used me. I took her hand. You're free now. You can be whoever you want. I'm still figuring out who that is. You have time. We stood there in front of Eleanor's portrait, 2 sisters bound by truth instead of lies, rebuilding something worth inheriting. My phone buzzed. Text from Sarah Nguyen. Probate finalized. Foundation officially transferred to you and Corinne as co-trustees. Eleanor would be proud. I showed Corinne. We did it, she said. We did it. Outside, the first Thanksgiving decorations were going up. The estate, now museum, would host its first holiday celebration next week. Free admission, hot chocolate for kids. chess lessons in Eleanor's memory. Full circle. I returned to the museum alone one evening after everyone left. Walked through the quiet halls to Eleanor's study, now preserved exactly as she'd kept it. Her desk, her fountain pen in a display case, her chess set on the side table, and on the main wall, the black box, the USB drive that had changed everything, now in a museum case with a placard. The black box, the device that preserved truth and delivered justice. Donated by Arden Barnes, 2025. I sat at Eleanor's desk, pulled out a piece of her letterhead. We had kept one box for special occasions. Wrote by hand, "Dear Grandma Eleanor, I kept my promise. They face justice. The foundation is restored. Corinne and I are doing the work you always wanted. It cost me my family. But I gained something more important, integrity. You were right. The truth doesn't set you free, but it does set things right. Thank you for teaching me that some things are worth fighting for. Love always, your little bird." I folded the letter and placed it in Eleanor's chess set, next to the queen piece. Then I stood, turned off the lights, and walked out. Behind me, Eleanor's portrait watched in the darkness, finally at peace. The foundation flourished. In 5 years, we awarded over 1,000 scholarships, built 3 community centers, funded legal aid for families who couldn't afford representation. Corinne found herself, started dating a nonprofit director, someone who valued her for her work, not her connections. She cut her hair short, stopped wearing designer labels, learned to be real. My father died in prison 4 years into his sentence. Heart attack. I didn't attend the funeral. My mother was released after 8 years for good behavior. She tried to contact me once. I didn't respond. Some bridges, once burned, stay ash, but Corinne visited her. Not often, just enough to say she'd tried. As for me, I kept defending people who needed defending, kept running the foundation with Corinne, kept Eleanor's chess set on my desk as a reminder that truth is the only game worth playing. And every year on Eleanor's birthday, Corinne and I played chess in the museum. She still let me win the first game, then demolished me in the second. Just like Eleanor taught us. Thank you so much for listening to the story until the very end. If Eleanor's fight for truth resonated with you, if Arden's courage inspired you, or if this story made you think about justice, family, and the price of doing what's right, please consider subscribing to this channel. Your support helps me continue telling stories about complicated people making difficult choices. Stories about women who refuse to stay silent. Stories about truth even when it costs everything. Drop a comment and let me know. Would you have done what Arden did? Would you have exposed your family for justice? And if you know someone who needs to hear this story, someone fighting their own battles against corruption or family secrets, share this with them. Until next time, remember, the truth doesn't always set you free, but it does set things right. Thank you for being here. Subscribe, and I'll see you in the next story.